Good morning, my name is Stephen Capaldo and it is Wednesday, May 13, 2026. Thank you for joining us. Today I just wanted to hop on for a few minutes and talk about some things that have been very annoying and troubling and just causing a lot of anger and just feelings like something is not right and something's got to give pretty soon. And the reason why I felt motivated to do this was yesterday I had an appointment with someone, and the person was telling me about his own health issues. That when he was like 16 or so, he was diagnosed with a mild loss of kidney function, and then after COVID and vaccination, he ended up losing one of his kidneys. That they had to remove it and they had to give him a new kidney, and now he's on medication for that, and who knows what else it's affecting. And I thought, these miserable MFers, I mean, what have they done to everyone? You look at what happened with COVID and how everybody fell for it. Pretty much everybody fell for it for a time at least. All of the people, the average people and patients, and most disgracefully of all, I would say most of the doctors fell for it. And they were saying, you have to wear a mask and the social distancing, and you have to stay home, and you have to get a vaccination. And the vaccinations have been proven not so safe and effective after all. I'll just leave it like that. And a lot of people fell ill, a lot of people died, and of course nobody wants to take any responsibility for it. Eventually there will be accountability for it, but it's just maddening to hear another one of these stories. And this is a young person, to have to give up a kidney and get another kidney. This is a person maybe in his 40s or something, but not an old person. And to have this happen, and the person had kind of an active life and athletic life. He played different sports. I think he played mostly basketball, and he was still active in that area. He's married, he's got a family, and he had this major thing happen to him because of this COVID, so-called COVID. Whether it's just a bad case of the flu, or whether it's a military weapon, a medical weapon, a medical bioweapon. However it originated, look at all the damage and destruction that was done for a number of years. And it was all planned. It was being planned up until late 2019, and then it was sprung on people in 2020, and it went on for a while, and and it's still claimed to be going on, except now they've the ruling class, these miserable MFers, they've come up with something else now, this Chanta virus. And if you know any Hebrew, Chanta, you know what that means. It means garbage. It's rubbish, BS, and that's basically what it is. I'm not saying that there couldn't be such a thing, and that it might affect some people. Some people might even die from whatever it is, whether it is legitimately a type of virus occurring in nature, or whether it's something made and spread. And these miserable MFers, they just want to spread it to as many people as possible, to kill as many people as possible. That's the issue. What's happening? And of course, they're trying to ratchet it up to the next level of fear. COVID. Oh well, we can give you a vaccination and we can give you boosters. This Chanta virus, they're saying there's no cure for it. If you get it, either from contact with rodent droppings, or from personal contact, like flying in an airplane. No matter how you get it, if you get it, what we're being told is there's no cure for it. So that's sort of ratcheting it up to the next level of fear. And you can't rely on the media to give any kind of objective reporting about it. You can't rely on the doctors. Most of them fell for COVID. Most of them will fall for this, or at least pretend like they're falling for it, because this is their livelihood, and this is what they have to tell you. At least now it sounds like they won't be able to try to do it under cover of being able to give you some kind of vaccination. It sounds like that's being ruled out as a possibility. But it's the type of thing you have to be on guard for it, and you really have to watch out for this ruling class throughout the world. They're just miserable MFers. They don't wish us any good. And they'll get their comeuppance. They'll get what's coming to them eventually. And for most people, I would say, come soon enough, and the sooner it comes, the better it is. So that's a little bit what's been done to us on the medical front. And these are not necessarily new things, but it's just that sometimes you reach a new point of discernment or a new point of, emotional outrage, and it's just sort of what I'm feeling now. And the other thing I wanted to touch on was the situation in Iran. Now Iran, I don't know. I think that what's happening in the whole political system worldwide, I think we're just watching a big movie, and we're watching a lot of corrupt players, and people that are trying to say this is the good side, this is the bad side, this guy's good, that guy's bad. I think they're missing the point, is that we're watching a movie play out, and God is ordaining all of this to be happening, even if a lot of it is bad stuff. God's plan is that eventually that the earth will be restored. We're in this old earth, and eventually we're going to have a new earth, and we're going to have restoration. But in the meantime, until that happens, we have to go through these very difficult things. And this situation in Iran, whether you call it a war, or whether you call it some kind of a special operation, the way the Russians called Ukraine, it really it isn't necessarily everything that it appears to be. It's a little bit of what you hear being reported or in the media or stated by politicians. It's a little bit of that. It is a little bit about oil and the increase in gas prices that you're seeing. That's real. That's real. But it isn't it's not the biggest thing that's happening here, and it's not even so much about jihad or whether Iran ends up with some kind of nuclear weapon. As far as nuclear weapon goes, why should the current nuclear weapon nations, like the U.S. and Israel and others, why should they be allowed to have nuclear weapons, and then Iran comes along and they can't have a nuclear weapon? To me, it's just an excuse for other things that are happening behind the scenes. More than oil, more than nuclear weapon, more than even jihad. There's a global civilizational power struggle that's taking place between the American system and the British colonial system, which really has been in charge behind the scenes. And it led to a lot of things. It led to the situations that you see in a lot of countries, that you saw in Venezuela, you're seeing in Iran, even like North Korea and Israel, what happened with the whole evolution of the situation where we saw in 1948 Israel. It was really the British imperial system that was behind that. The British imperial system, which is based on globalism, a one world government system, it was based on so-called free trade. But what happens with free trade is that you have some chronically poor nations, like a lot of them in Africa, for example, who are mineral rich, commodity rich. So those things, to get any money at all, they have to give those things to the elite countries. The elite countries make a lot of money on stuff, on making stuff from the commodities, and they get rich, but basically the commodity producing countries, they remain poor. They don't really have a chance to develop the same kind of industrial base and economic base, manufacturing base that the Western countries have been able to develop. So this is what the UK imperial system is all about. It's about globalism, it's about exploiting commodities, it's about so-called free trade, but really resulting in economic slavery for the poorer countries, the smaller countries. The U.S. system, the American system, if it's allowed to come back, is about national sovereignty for every nation. Every nation has a true sense of national sovereignty, just like every individual is supposed to have a true sense of personal sovereignty. We come from God. The nations are ordained by God, and they should have national sovereignty, but under God, and they should be able to develop their own economic base and do with it what they're able to do with it. So there should be an agenda for this type of prosperity for every nation, and not the many nations, the poorer nations controlled by the few. And another thing that works very well for globalism is a perpetual state of war. Look at all the wars that we've had, and who do the wars benefit? And everyone says, well, the God of the Bible ordained war. Well, what kind of war did the God of the Bible ordain? Was it a self-defense war? Was it some false God that was ordaining all of these wars? We don't really know. But the true God, the one the one true Most High is a God of peace. Jesus came proclaiming peace. He was not proclaiming war unless it was some kind of spiritual warfare. But as far as the physical warfare that results in families, members being killed, children being killed, because they're sent to these wars that are only for the ruling elites. They're not for the soldiers. They're not for the people that they're fighting against. This type of war, this was not what Jesus was calling for. He was not calling for this type of physical violence. The warfare was spiritual warfare. There is a spirit war that is going on between good and evil, and unless you can confront evil and learn how to deal with evil, you cannot know good. You need this duality, which source, God, has allowed to happen, because unless you can see the bad and deal with the bad, if you can't deal with the shadow, you can't really know the light. If you can't deal with 1948 Israel, you cannot really deal with the true Israel, which was the body of Christ, of both Jewish and Gentile. So if you cannot see these negatives, you cannot transform them into positives. You cannot. You don't really have the discernment to know the difference. So that's really the purpose of all of this. And as far as who's the good guy, who's the bad guy? There's a lot of talk about, are the good guys U.S. and Israel, are the good guys Iran? I think, like I was trying to say, it's not really the point. I think the U.S. and Israel, what it looks like to me at this point is that they really are kind of using each other. I think Israel went in there to kill certain people in Iran, and the U.S. is really dealing with the oil situation, the blocking of the straits. But really, bear in mind that there's a bigger conflict, more than oil, more than jihad, more than nuclear weapons. There's a bigger conflict between these two world systems that have been on opposite sides ever since the first American Revolution, and especially since 1871, when in effect certain legislation was passed in the U.S. that really in a way gave Britain back control, which was to have passed to the Americans after the Revolutionary War, but it came back to Britain, and Britain has been able to maintain this kind of globalist system, and they've promoted things like the income tax and selling birth certificates for money, this type of thing. There's a lot of stolen money, and that's another thing. The economic injustices that have happened because of this globalist system. And that's one thing which I think God has ordained, peace and prosperity eventually, and eventually there will be some kind of, I don't know if it's reparation is the right word, but there will be some kind of economic restoration. All this tax money and interest money and mortgage money and loan money, and all, and if you don't know what's been done with your birth certificate, you've been declared basically a lost at sea person, and your birth certificate has been trafficked for money by the ruling elites in different countries. And if you don't know that, or you think that I'm just saying things out of turn and I'm just a crackpot, you should really do some research on that. What has happened to your birth certificate, and how much money are you owed between that and all of the tax ripoff. Income tax was not apportioned properly, probably not even a legal thing. Property tax is just, what's the point of owning a home if you're just going to be taxed and taxed and taxed over and over and over? It's like this never-ending property tax. It's like a death sentence. And not to mention, you could even go into the insurance industry. On top of it, it's all well and good to say you own a home mortgage-free. That's nice, but then does the property tax stop? Does the insurance stop? And of course, you have to make repairs to the home. That's just part of being a homeowner. That's not up to anybody but you. But certainly, the property tax and the insurance, these are really unfair charges, and the usury. I mean, if you want to quote the Bible says that you cannot charge interest on loans. You're not supposed to charge interest, and certainly not 7, 8, 9 double digit. Certainly not that type of interest. And yet this is done, and it has nothing to do with ethnicity or this group or that group. It's a principle that you're not supposed to take advantage of people who borrow money. But anyway, these are some of the things that are just kind of, making me very emotional lately. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about what the future might hold as far as some of these international organizations. As some of you probably know, I had experience working at the UN, and I'm familiar with that system. I'm a bit familiar with NATO, and I've seen the neocon war machine in action. To me, it looks like the UN is probably living on borrowed time. It looks like, and I don't know. You hear tell of this Board of Peace. I don't know how far the Board of Peace is going to go, but it's got some important countries on it, and I think the idea should be, and I think God's plan is, that all of these wars and all of this physical violence stops, and that we do have peace. Now, is it being done the right way, the best way, when it will be done? These are all human logistics and human modalities, and you just have to sort of study it and figure out what you think of it. But really, God has us headed for a period of peace. And it's become a golden cliche to talk about the golden age. I don't think right now it's all that smart to talk about we're in a golden age. Well, I think peace and a new earth, I think if that's the golden age, we're going to get it. But to say that we have it right now at this moment, I think it just kind of it just can appear to be kind of silly, or at least premature, to start talking about it now. But anyway, the peace, instead of the UN is a war machine. NATO is definitely a war machine. They just want this European war to keep on. They want to wage war against Russia, and NATO and the European countries have decided that for some reason Russia is not a normal country with its problems and ups and downs, like pluses and minuses like anyone else, but somehow they're the devil, and Russia has been demonized as a country for reasons which are just self-interested on the part of the EU and the European and Europe in general, and NATO. And there's no reason not to try to have a partnership with other big countries, and I think that's a trend that you're going to see, and it doesn't really depend on Trump. It's just it's going to happen. I think instead of the permanent members of the Security Council, the UN may continue to exist in name. I mean, if you know your history a little bit, the League of Nations existed from like 1917 to 1945, and then the UN came in, and they've been around since 1945. But now it's 2026, and maybe the UN will cease to exist, or they're going to exist in some kind of diminished form. They're going to be relegated to, the back row. And so what the UN says, the General Assembly or the Security Council or the 5 permanent members of the Security Council, what they say just isn't going to mean very much. And the G7 as well, they may not be the economic engine that they think they are, if the system of national sovereignty and economic development wins over the globalist, commodity-based, so-called free trade but economic slavery type of system. If the globalists lose and the national sovereigntists and personal sovereigntists win, then all of this war machine will disappear, and the P5 and the G7 will just not be significant. You'll have 5 major countries if this seems to be the trend, and it doesn't depend on Trump. You can love Trump, you can hate Trump, you can be indifferent to Trump. I think he's just playing a role. He does what he's told to do. He's a cog in the machine, and really, who's behind all things? God is behind all things. So that's what you have to keep your eye on. This trust the plan, or trust Q. No, you trust God. You trust God's plan, that God has ordained something for the planet. Instead of old Earth, we're going to get new Earth. And right now, it looks like the 5 big countries that are coming together are the U.S. and Russia and China, India and Japan. And this summit this week, all of the results have already been ordained, right, between the U.S. and China. What's going to happen between those 2 countries. But the media will put on a good show of, they're discussing this and discussing that, and they're going to build up the hype. What's going to happen from this and what's going to happen from that. Whatever it is, it's already happened. It was already agreed to a long time ago, and it's been coming. It's just now you're going to be told about it. So it looks like also there'll be kind of a sphere of influence system coming back, where there was really a little bit during the Cold War times, so it will be a different style. The U.S. is consolidating its position in the Western Hemisphere, and Russia will have its end of things, and China will have their area. India will be, China and India will work together quite a bit, and Japan will be part of that and work with Russia as well. So there's going to be kind of an East and West division, but there's going to be more cooperation based on national sovereignty and economic development. I think, to me, that seems to be the way. Not that politicians want it, that seems to be the divine plan, and it's just a question of timing, what's going to happen when. I do think that if we don't start to see some much better news by the end of the year, I think people should speak out, and just people should not remain silent. And there should be some kind of, non-violent response, but a non-violent revolt if things don't start to change for the better in the next few months, and certainly by the end of the year, if you want to be charitable about it. We should start to see some visible results, like, certain people being tried and arrested, and we see it, we know it, and, a certain economic changes that show that the future is not going to be the way it's been recently, and an affirmation of our human rights, our God-given rights, and no more of this, trying to scare us and control us with all of these medical imaginings. And I'm not saying that disease doesn't exist, but the way it's being portrayed is very exaggerated and very fear-mongering. So anyway, this is just these are just a few of the things that I've had on my mind, and it was all triggered by this poor fellow's kidney problem that he had, and which really was made as bad as possible, and resulted in the loss and replacement of a kidney due to COVID and the vaccination. Just one of the many horror stories, and there are a lot of other things that have happened, especially since 2020. And so that experience that I had with this young man, not so young man, but in his 40s, certainly not that old. It just triggered all these things, memories of all these things that have been going on the last 6 years or so. So I think you'll bear these, you should bear these things in mind. You should study these things, and you should come to reasonable, sensible, logical conclusions on what's really happening and what your role is and what your relationship is to God in Christ. So I hope this has been, not too much of a rant, but that it provided some useful insight, and that it will help you consider things now moving forward. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.